Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be back.
Today, we're going to be looking at ReZero,
Yep, ReZero.
and we have a pretty interesting source.
Yeah, it is.
It's basically two fans ranking all the ReZero characters,
All of them.
and they rank them based on, like, three things.
3 criteria. Yeah.
So, like, how strong are they?
Gotta be in there, right?
How well-written is the character?
Yeah, this is ReZero we're talking about.
How much suffering do they cause or endure?
Pretty important metric for this show.
Yeah.
I think so.
So we're not just going to go through the list, though. We're going to look at their reasoning.
Yeah.
Kind of understand, like, why they made these choices.
Yeah, because it's one thing to just, like, see a tier list and be like, oh, okay, I agree or disagree.
Right.
But it's way more interesting to, like, get into the heads of the people who made the list.
Absolutely.
And see what they were thinking, you know, what their criteria were, and, like, maybe we learned something from that.
Yeah.
Maybe we understand the show better.
I love that.
Or the characters better. So
yeah,
that's the plan for today's deep dive.
Cool.
All right. Let's start at the top, shall we?
Let's do it.
Top of the list.
So they put Subaru in A tier.
Okay.
But they call him the Suffering King.
Oh, yeah.
And they give him, like, an infinity out of 10
Oh, wow.
for his suffering score.
Yeah, he's got the record.
He holds the Anime Pain Olympics record,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
according to them.
For sure.
So,
That's saying something, right?
it's a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
But they still put him in A tier.
Right.
So, like, how...
He must have done something right.
Yeah.
He's that high up on the list.
What makes him so good despite all the suffering?
Well, they highlight his character growth a lot.
Okay.
They actually say from cringy neat
No.
to selfless hero.
Right.
That's quite a journey.
It is a journey.
And they think that that journey
Yeah.
makes him really compelling as a character. You know, it's all about that transformation.
Right, yeah.
Forged in the fires of death and despair, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
classic anime protagonist stuff.
Right. It's like the whole point of the show almost.
It is, yeah, yeah.
But they do have a little bit of criticism for him, too.
Okay.
Like, they point out
What is it?
that he has these IQ drops,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
especially when he doesn't listen to Beatrice.
Yeah, Beatrice is always right.
Yeah.
And Subaru just doesn't want to listen half the time.
He doesn't write.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that leads to a lot of suffering.
It does.
So how do they reconcile that with him being, like, well-written?
Well, you know, I think a perfectly written character doesn't have to be perfect in
Okay.
every way, right? Like, I think his flaws actually make him more interesting.
Okay.
Like the fact that he's stubborn and doesn't always make the best decisions,
yeah.
that makes him human, you know? We all make mistakes. We all have our blind spots.
Yeah.
And I think that makes him relatable,
Makes sense.
even though he's in this crazy world with
Yeah.
magic and time loops and all that.
Totally.
So, yeah, I think his flaws are part of what make him so well written.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So moving on,
Yeah.
we have to talk about
I know where you're going with this.
the waifu wars, Rem versus Emilia.
The central debate
Yeah.
of our time.
Last source did not shy away.
No, they jumped right in.
So first up, Rem.
Okay.
They point out that her loyalty is maxed.
Yeah.
That she has this iconic confession.
Oh, it's one for the ages. I mean,
Yeah.
who could forget that?
Yeah, and that she really helps to carry Subaru's sanity.
Yeah. I mean, he would be a lot worse off
Yeah.
without her for sure.
Yeah, so she's got a lot going for her.
Yeah.
But they do mention
Yeah.
that she's not in season 2 as much.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to be best girl
Yeah.
when you're not even there, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Tough break for Rem.
yeah.
Then we have Emilia.
Okay, the actual heroine.
Yeah. They really emphasize her plot relevance.
Yeah.
Like, she's silver-haired royalty.
Mm-hmm.
She's Puck's daughter.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
she's tied into everything.
Yeah, she's at the center of the mysteries
Yeah.
of the world, you know?
Totally.
So.
But she doesn't confess her love until way later.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big deal for some people.
Yeah, I mean, some people are all about that instant gratification.
Yeah, they want the confession right away.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it kind of works for her character.
I think so, too.
Like, she's a little more reserved.
Yeah.
Takes her time,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So I think it makes sense
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things.
So what's the verdict?
All right, so the source lays it out pretty clearly.
Okay.
Rem wins Best Girl,
Okay.
but Emilia wins Best Story Impact.
Oh.
Fight us.
Wow. Okay, so they're not messing around
No, they're very passionate. Yeah.
about this.
So what do you think about that?
I think it's actually a really smart distinction.
Okay.
You know, like, Best girl is often about personal preference.
Yeah.
Who do you connect with more?
Yeah.
What do you find more appealing?
Right.
But best story impact.
Yeah.
That's about who's more important to the plot.
Oh,
Who drives the narrative?
right.
Who
Yeah.
really shapes the world?
That's a good way to look at it.
So I think they're acknowledging both sides of the
Yeah.
debate,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like Rem is a fan favorite
Mm-hmm.
for good reason,
Right.
but Emilia is the one who's really at the heart of the story.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Now we're moving on to
Go up.
the power scaler's nightmare,
Oh, boy.
which is Reinhard.
Yeah.
They call him literally unbeatable. 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10.
And they think the writers had to ban him from arcs.
Yeah, he's too strong.
He's just too strong.
It's not even fair.
Right.
So what does that mean for the story? Like,
Well, it definitely creates some challenges.
Okay.
You know, like how do you have any tension
Yeah.
if there's this guy who can just win
Yeah.
at any moment?
Yeah.
So they have to get creative.
Okay.
You know, they have to find ways to sideline him
Yeah.
or create situations where his powers don't work or
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
so that the other characters can actually,
Yeah.
you know, do something.
Have a chance.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Then we have Roswaal,
Ah, yes.
whose power apparently fluctuates
Yeah,
based on his mental state.
it does. It does.
So they say SS tier when scheming,
Hmm.
F tier when crying over Echidna's ghost.
Yeah,
That's quite a range.
it is. It is.
So how did that work?
Well, I think it shows that power in ReZero
Yeah.
isn't just about like raw strength.
Okay.
You know, it's also about intelligence and planning
Yeah.
and emotional stability. Like
Okay.
Roswaal is super smart.
Yeah.
He's got these long-term plans. He's manipulative,
Right.
but he's also got this huge weakness,
Right.
which is his obsession with Echidna.
Right.
So when he's focused on his schemes,
Yeah.
he's super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's all mopey and emotional,
Yeah.
he's basically useless.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So his power is tied to his emotions.
in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have Puck.
Ah, yes.
So they describe him as 10 out of 10 until Emilia dies.
Right.
Then it's apocalypse mode.
Yeah. You don't want to see Puck
You do know.
when he's angry.
Yo.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So basically, Puck is super strong,
Okay.
but his power is tied to Emilia.
Yeah.
Like, he's her protector,
Mm-hmm.
and if she gets hurt,
Yeah.
he will unleash his full power,
Right.
and it's not going to be pretty.
No.
So, yeah, he's a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very powerful,
Yeah.
but also very dangerous.
Totally. And then they have this really interesting take on Otto.
Oh, yeah.
They call him the true MVP.
The real hero.
Yeah. For outsmarting everyone with just a wagon.
Yeah.
So how does he do that?
Well, Otto's not a fighter.
Okay.
He's not a mage.
Right.
He's just a regular guy
All
with
right.
a wagon.
Right.
But he's incredibly resourceful.
Okay.
He's smart.
Mm-hmm.
He's good at talking his way out of situations.
Right.
And he's surprisingly good at driving that wagon.
Yeah.
I mean, he can do some crazy stuff with that thing.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, he's kind of the underdog
Yeah.
who always manages to come out on top.
I love that.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so now let's talk about the villains.
okay.
They did a little ranking
Mm-hmm.
of villains based on how terrifying they are.
Okay.
So first up, Betelgeuse,
Yes.
who made finger cracking terrifying.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Those fingers.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Yeah. How did he,
I don't know, man.
like, what's so scary about him?
It's like the way he moves,
Yeah.
the way he talks,
Right.
that crazy smile.
Yeah.
It's just all very unsettling,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally.
And then the finger cracking just adds to the whole creepy vibe.
The cherry on top.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have Regulus,
Yeah.
whose incel energy
Oh, boy.
is so strong.
Yeah.
It's a superpower.
Yeah. He's something else.
Yeah. So how does that manifest?
Well, he's basically got this huge sense of entitlement.
Okay.
You know, like he thinks he deserves everything.
Yeah.
He thinks he's better than everyone else.
Right.
And he can't understand why anyone would disagree with him,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's where the incel energy comes in.
Okay.
Like he's just so frustrated
Yeah.
and angry,
Mm.
and it fuels his powers somehow.
Okay. So his negativity makes him stronger.
It does.
That's so messed up.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Then we have Elsa,
Ah, yes.
whose gut hunter title speaks for itself.
It does. Not much to say there.
No, she's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Just a terrifying killer
Yeah.
who likes to stab people.
Yeah. In the gut.
Yeah.
So.
But the best villain award goes to
Oh, this is my favorite.
Roswaal for playing 4D chess across 400 years.
That's right.
How is that even possible?
Well, Roswaal is a long-term planner.
Okay.
Like, he's been working on his schemes
Yeah.
for centuries.
Wow.
And he's willing to sacrifice anything
Yeah.
to achieve his goals.
Okay.
So he's not like the other villains who are just like
Right.
crazy and violent.
Yeah.
He's more calculated, more manipulative,
Yeah.
more patient,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
He's playing the long game.
That's terrifying.
It is, yeah.
Okay. So they also have a category for
Dark horses.
dark horses,
Yeah.
underrated gems,
Yeah.
characters who they think deserve more love.
More recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
So first up, Beatrice,
Ah, yes.
who they describe as a Sunder librarian who saves Subaru 100+ times.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is she underrated?
Well, I think people focus too much on her Sunder side. Okay.
You know, like she's always yelling at Subaru and
Yeah.
calling him a fool.
Yeah.
But they forget that she's also incredibly powerful.
Right.
And she's saved Subaru's life countless times.
Yeah.
She's also got a really interesting backstory
Yeah.
that we're still learning about.
Totally.
So, yeah, I think she deserves more credit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then we have Ferris,
Oh, yes.
who they say broke gender norms and healed everyone's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, yeah.
So how does Ferris do all that?
Well, Ferris is a healer,
Uh-huh.
and they're really good at it. They can
Yeah.
heal physical injuries
Mhm.
and emotional trauma. And they also don't really conform
Yeah.
to gender norms. You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
present themselves in a very fluid way.
Totally.
So, yeah, they're a really unique and important character.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And rounding out the trio is Wilhelm,
Yes.
who they call an old man with dragon-slaying riz.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What makes him so great?
Well, Wilhelm is a legend.
Okay.
He's the dragon sword saint.
Right.
He's killed countless dragons,
Whoa.
and he's still got it,
Yeah.
even though he's old.
Yeah.
He's also got this really tragic love story
Oh.
with his wife, Theresia,
Yeah.
which is explored more in the spin-offs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a really well-developed character.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum,
Uh-oh.
they put Petra in F tier
Okay.
for contributing nothing but lowly fan service.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, that's a pretty harsh assessment.
It is, yeah.
So what do I mean by that?
Well, I think they're saying that Petra is only there
Yeah.
to appeal
Right.
to a certain audience.
Yeah.
You know, like she doesn't really contribute to the plot.
Okay.
Her character isn't very developed.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that her main purpose
Right.
is
Yeah.
to be,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
eye candy
Yeah.
for people who are into that sort of thing.
So they're not a fan.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, it's a valid criticism.
Yeah.
You know, it's up to each individual viewer
Right.
to decide whether they agree or not.
Absolutely.
But it's
Yeah.
definitely something to think about. So.
Yeah. Okay, so now for the final tier list.
All right, drum roll, please.
So in S tier, we have Subaru,
Yep.
Rem,
Yep.
Beatrice,
Yep.
and Reinhard.
Yep.
So those are like the top tier characters.
Best of the best.
Yeah.
According to our source.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense.
It does.
Like Subaru's the protagonist.
Yeah.
He's the one we follow.
Yeah.
Rem is super popular.
Mm.
Beatrice is powerful
Yeah.
and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And Reinhard is just like unbeatable.
Yeah.
So they're all very important.
In different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then in A tier, we have Emilia,
Yep.
Roswaal,
Yep.
Otto,
Yep.
and Wilhelm.
Yep.
So that's like a strong supporting cast.
Yeah. They're all really good characters who contribute a lot to the story.
Totally.
Yeah.
In B tier, we have Ram,
Yeah.
Ferris,
Yep.
and Crush.
Yep.
So they're all good characters too,
They are. Yeah.
but maybe not quite as impactful.
Yeah. Or as well developed or as popular or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right? And then in F tier, we have Petra.
Yep.
And the dead Anastasia clones.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like the bottom of the barrel.
The rejects, the ones that our source didn't like. So
Okay, so that's the list.
that's the list.
What do you think overall?
I think it's a really interesting list.
Yeah.
You know, it's clearly very subjective.
Yeah.
But it's well thought out and
Yeah.
it sparked a lot of discussion. So I
Yeah.
think that's what makes a good tier list.
Yeah.
You know, something that gets people talking
Absolutely.
and thinking about the characters in new ways.
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think our listeners should take away from this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that
There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
when it comes to ranking characters. It's
Okay.
all about personal preference.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you might love a character
Yeah.
that someone else hates.
Right.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need to argue about it.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the characters that
Yeah.
you enjoy
Totally.
and respect other people's opinions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, were there any rankings that you were surprised by or that you disagreed with?
You know, I was a little surprised by Petra being an F tier.
Okay.
Like, I think she's a cute character.
Yeah.
But I can see where they're coming from with
Yeah.
the whole lowly fan service thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily disagree,
Okay.
but it's not a ranking that I would have made myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think our listeners should do now?
Well, I think it would be fun
Yeah.
to make their own tier list. You know, like, think about all the characters
Yeah.
and where you would rank them
Right.
and why. And then
Yeah.
you can compare your list
Yeah.
to the one we discussed today
So-
and see where you agree
Yeah.
and where you disagree.
I love that.
Yeah. And maybe you'll even learn something
Yeah.
about yourself
Yeah.
in the process.
Cool. So, all right. So that's our deep dive into ReZero character rankings.
That's it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.